Hello and welcome to Take Time. I'm your host, Patrick Marlett. Today we're taking a look at a 1930s inspired design by newcomer Beaufort. This is their Aerotimer Automatic, a watch as multifaceted as the many styles it comes in. From its stepped bezel and case to the applied markers of its California dial, there's a lot of surface to cover on the Beaufort Aerotimer. Before we begin the video, I want you all to know that this sample is being lent in for review, so a special thanks goes out to Rob of Beaufort Watches for sending this watch my way. Now, as I like to do with all my reviews here on the channel, I'm going to start with the bad and move on to the good before giving my final verdict on a review item. So without further ado, let's talk Aerotimer. As I previously mentioned, this is a sample unit, so there are differences between it and the production units to come, namely the lume used, its application, and an error you may spot with the dial. The Roman numeral 1 is slightly misaligned. Rob has addressed this issue with his manufacturer and assures me that this will not be an issue with the production units. Sample differences aside, the Aerotimer's 10 Atmos case is constructed from 316L stainless steel and will come with a matching leather strap to one of the 8 dial and case variants being offered. We also have a sapphire sandwich here displaying the Sellita SW200 encased inside. I love the design, but part of me can't help but wonder what might this watch look like without the date. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the date location here, but I could have gone with one less case and dial variant for a model that featured the same design sans a date. It measures out fine, the window slightly north of 6 o'clock proper with an added loomed marker, but there is a lack of time-only pieces on the market, and this watch, with its lovely pastel Cali dial, would have lended itself well to being a time-only piece. Also, regarding the dial, I love that pastel colors are in. I want to see more brands doing this, but the dial itself is rather flat. It has a one-dimensional look. If the outer ring, where the minute track lies, was done in white to contrast the coloration of the inner dial, it would have given the watch more life. This is a simple fix. A more ambitious approach would be to leave the coloration as is and raise the central area of the dial. This would add that sense of dimension the dial needs to liven it in the beholder's eyes. Perhaps I'm being a bit too picky, but I'm privy to a host of designs on this channel. For me, this dial is lacking that finishing touch to make it truly stand out. However, what's not lacking in any measure is that case. The case of the Aerotimer is exceptional. I, on a neutral note, feel the lug width would be more favorable at 20mm, but the wide-eared appeal of the leaf-like lugs is stellar. The case composition here is very attractive and practical. The highly polished stepped bezel sharply grabs your attention with subtle brushed strokes guiding your eyes to the vintage-style leather strap. It's a handsome case I was immediately fond of. Though I feel the dial lacks in some character, I do appreciate the bold approach to a classic design, that being the Cali dial. It's not easy to find a well-composed California dial. That is, a dial with Roman numerals in the upper half and Arabics in the lower half. How I decide on whether a California dial has been successfully executed is this. When I initially look at the watch, do I notice it? At first, I didn't even realize I had a Cali dial in my hands. Normally, these dials come off as odd or irregular, but nothing immediately stood out. It felt perfectly natural in hand. In matters of taste, everything is subjective, but I am a huge fan of Cali dials. The black-coated sword hands of the pastel blue dial and those lovely matching markers really work in the Aerotimer's favor. Again, with a larger strap on a 40mm diameter chassis, you do get the impression that you're wearing a larger watch, though it wears those 22mm well. Now, here's what the Beaufort Aerotimer will look like on a 7¼ inch wrist for all of your admirers, and when you are going to admire it, it's going to look a little something like this. The Beaufort Aerotimer is certainly an inspired piece. From its throwback to the bubble-back dials of old and its classic case lines, we have a watch that makes for a great dress casual piece for the modern gent. So far as value is concerned, this New Zealand-based brand aims to deliver. I look forward to seeing future design concepts and further iterations of the Aerotimer, as I can see this becoming a staple in many collections. Keep walking that pastel path, and good work, Robert. Again, my name is Patrick Marlett, and thank you for the time.